Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we are doing a deep dive into the world of ANA HUANG. So a little background for those who don't know who ANA HUANG is. ANA HUANG is a best-selling author in the New York Times, on Amazon, and a lot of different places. She has written her If Love series, the Twisted series, which I feel like the Twisted series is what she's most known for, and then her newest series, which is the King of Sin series. And as someone who has finally completed and read all of her books, I decided that I was going to do a deep dive into ANA HUANG, how she writes, what kind of books she writes, which ones I recommend, my ratings throughout each series, and just kind of why she's one of my favorite authors. So let's get into it. So as of right now, ANA HUANG has written and published 12 books, and she has 2 coming out. This is King of Envy, which comes out next year, and The Striker, which comes out this October. So the first thing I want to start off with is ANA HUANG's writing. Now, ANA HUANG is very known for doing a third act breakup, and you see this a lot within her newer series. You will see this in the Twisted series. If that's the first series that you read by her, you see it in all 4 books. There's always a third act breakup. You definitely see it in the King of Sin series. The only series that you actually don't see it in as much is her If Love series, and even through that series, you will see that within the first book, going all the way to the 4th book, she turns into the type of writer who does do third act breakups. If you like third act breakups, it's definitely an acquired taste. I know some people really don't like doing third act breakups just because it's like, why have an argument when things are going so good? But yes, ANA HUANG is definitely an author who does third act breakups. She writes steamy literature. She writes with a lot of dominant male characters, and I would say very strong female characters. Again, which is why I really like her writing, just because I like the fact that there is a quote-unquote alpha male, but I like that the women also within these relationships are very strong, and they are very independent, and they don't actually need them, but it's the fact that they want them, and the fact that these men are willing to go through great lengths to be with these people. I do have to say, as somebody who read her debut series after reading her newest series, her writing has definitely evolved and changed. In the beginning, there is a lot more of the third person aspect where you see both point of views, but in the sense of you're seeing it through a third person perspective, which for me, third person is one of my least favorite point of views to read from, just because it tends to get a little confusing sometimes. That's just me personally. I just really don't like third person. I love to be in the character, know what they're feeling, know what they're thinking, everything like that, which you definitely still get with ANA HUANG in her debut series. Again, it's not my favorite, but I still really like when she did third person, if that makes sense. So ANA HUANG is also very known for writing multi-millionaire, billionaire romances. It's what she was known for in the Twisted series, if you know her from that. And the King of Sin series is very similar to that, where it is a billionaire series. And The Striker is actually going to be her first sports romance. So everyone is very excited for that, because she has very much stayed in this realm of writing about men or women who come from a very rich background, whether it's inheritance, whether it's new money, old money, it doesn't matter. My last thing that I was going to say about her writing is that every single one of her books, all of the characters, every single one from her debut series to her most recent series to her new releases that are coming out, aka the Gods of the Game series that she's starting, they're all within the same world. So let me explain a little bit for those who have never read an ANA HUANG book and have probably no idea what the heck I'm talking about. The If Love series takes place with people who basically were in a foreign exchange program. Those people who are in their foreign exchange program, all of those 4 people live in the exact same world as people from the Twisted series. So you will see a lot of crossovers if you have read the Twisted series and the If Love series, and especially if you have read the Twisted series and the King of Sin series. characters overlap a lot, whether you notice it or not, and it's very subtle, so you definitely would have to be one of those people who has read her books to understand and know, like, oh my god, that's that character. Which I love because I feel like it's like a little Easter egg for those readers that are continuously reading her books and picking up on those little things. It's absolutely adorable. I love it. The next part of the video that I wanted to get into was my ratings on each of the series. Now the first series I'm going to start with is her debut series, and this is actually the series that I have read most recent because I started with the Twisted series and then I read the King of Sin series and then I went to the If Love series. Just so that everyone's aware, there are 4 books within the If Love series. Those books are If We Ever Meet Again, If the Sun Never Sets, If Love Had a Price, and If We Were Perfect. So the first 2 books are about 2 of the same characters who are Blake and Farah. Now Farah is really into interior design. It's what she loves, like literally loves, obsessed with it. Could not take that away from her. Blake is a old football player who he actually doesn't want to be a football player anymore, and that's a whole thing that you get into within these first 2 books. I will say there is a cheating trope, there is a miscommunication trope, I feel there is, and genuinely when I first read the first book I was like, this is what ANA HUANG wrote, like this is an ANA HUANG book. I was very confused, I was very thrown off, but this is also as somebody who had read all of her other books before reading her debut series. So to go back and read her debut series and seeing that the way that she writes currently is not the way that she used to write is crazy. Moving on to the third book, this is about Nate and Chris. And Chris is like the rich girl in the relationship. Not in the relationship, in the friend group. She's like the super rich one. She's like, if you've read it, you know what I mean when I say that she is the rich friend. Like everything's about money, everything is about what she has, everything. She's very seen as a very stuck-up character and just very bougie. The last book is about Sammy and Olivia, which actually you will see throughout the first 3 books that Sammy and Olivia did have a relationship and then something happened and it's never talked about. And then you finally get to Sammy and Olivia's book and you find out what happened. So that is basically what Sammy and Olivia's book is about. So going on to my ratings for these books, my rating for If We Ever Meet Again was a 2-star. Genuinely, probably, I think my least favorite ANA HUANG book that I have read, I want to say, and I think that's mostly because of the way that it goes towards the end, or the way that it heads in the end. The second book, which is the second book in Blake and Farah's story, I ended up giving 3 stars. Again, it was okay. It just felt like it could have been all one book and not 2, but that's just me personally. The third book, which was about Chris and Nate, was my favorite. I ended up giving this a 4.5. I love Chris. I love Nate. I love them. They are amazing. This was the book that I was waiting for the most, just because I felt like she was the most misunderstood within the friend group, just because of the way that her personality is portrayed within the first 2 books. So I was really excited to get to hers. And then lastly, we get to Sammy and Olivia's books, which is If We Were Perfect. And I ended up giving it 2 stars because I feel like Sammy and Olivia's issue was miscommunication, and I always feel like miscommunication is just something that just angers me. It's not relatable to me. It doesn't make me feel any other type of way except for angry. So if I had to put these books in order from first to last, in last place it's going to be If We Ever Met Again. Third place would be If We Were Perfect. And then in second place we would have If the Sun Never Sets. And then in first place we have If Love Had a Price. So the next series I want to talk about is the Twisted series, and this is her second series, which is actually the series that I started with. So if you don't know, the Twisted series is about a group of friends. Now these 4 girls are all friends, very different, I don't even know how they're friends, to be honest with you, but the situation is basically that they all went to college together, and now they're living kind of their prospective lives, but they're all friends. So it's basically just a friend group, and you watch each friend basically fall in love, and it's adorable, and I love that. But that is the basis of the series. And then starting off with the first book, it's Twisted Love, and Twisted Love was actually my very, very first Ana Huang book that I have ever read. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Now, if you don't know, Twisted Love is about Anna Chen and Alex Volkrov. I don't really know how to say his last name, but we'll just call them Ava and Alex. So, Ava is this sunshiny little girl. She's so sunshiny. She's so nice. She's so kind. She's just so nice. I would say she's definitely got a little bit of a twisted side. I just think personally she can do some damage if she really wanted to. Just saying. But anyways, and then you have Alex, and Alex is very much cold. He has no empathy for anybody. Could not give any fucks. It's actually scary, as what it's described, is that he's that scary that he just doesn't care about anybody or anything. That's Alex. He's the CEO of his own company. And I will say that this book is very much like a soap opera. It gives soap opera. There is so much drama. There's so many twists and turns. And I honestly think that this book, being the shortest one in the Twisted series, is the best one in the Twisted series. Spoiler for later, but moving on to the second book within the Twisted series, it is Twisted Games. Now this is about the friend Bridget, and I forgot her last name, but her name is Bridget, and Reese. And now Reese is like an old Navy SEAL, and I love Reese, okay? Love him. He's a grumpy little guy. Bridget is a princess, and Reese is her bodyguard. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys on this one, not my favorite. I actually think I really wanted to like this one, but just princess and bodyguard trope just really doesn't do it for me, or maybe it just didn't this time. I honestly have no idea, but I do know that Reese is the only one who genuinely just had love for Bridget, and it just ended up being an issue because of her stance and her situation. But you know how we say Ana Huang always says a third act breakup? Just be prepared. That's all I'm saying. Whenever you go into these Twisted series and the following series that I will be talking about, protect your heart, okay? Protect it. No, but I ended up giving this book a 2 stars just because, again, it just wasn't for me. I don't think there's genuinely anything wrong with this book. It just wasn't for me. I felt no relation to the characters. I could not compare or connect to them in any way, shape, or form. So to me, it was just a book, and I kind of like to feel that connection or some relatability to a character or to the book itself, and I had absolutely none. So that's just a personal thing. Next book that I want to talk about is Twisted Hate. Now, Twisted Hate is a book I literally hate, and this is about Jules Ambrose, which we love Jules, okay? And Josh Chen, which is Ava's brother. And now here's the biggest problem for me, is that I love Twisted Love, okay? And if you've read this series, you know what Josh does in Twisted Love. You know how he acts, you know how he is betrayed, and I just can't. I hated Josh before I started the book just because of the series itself, and I quite literally can't. And the way that he treated Jules, I quite literally can't. I just can't say it enough. I quite literally cannot. So this for me was a 2-star read, and I think it was mostly because I just hated Josh's character. Josh is a doctor who is very egotistical. He's a smartass. He gets a whole bunch of girls. He's super attractive. And Jules is literally the same thing, except for the fact that she is a lawyer and a redhead, and she is beautiful. So they are very, very similar, but very, very different. And I don't think I could ever stress that enough. Personally, I don't think Jules ended up with the right character. I don't think Josh should have been the one to be with her at all whatsoever. I don't think he deserved her. I think she deserved 10 times better. So that's my opinion on that. Let's move on, because I could talk about this for quite literally forever. Last we have Twisted Lies. Now Twisted Lies is about Christian and Stella is a influencer. She makes fashion content. She is very pretty. She is very introverted, which is crazy because she's a influencer, but she's very introverted, and she definitely has her struggles that she doesn't talk about, which honestly, you don't get a lot from Stella in any of the books at all. So it's really nice that Stella got her book, and it's kind of nice to see her point of view on things and see that she is a person and she's not just like there in the background. And then there's Christian, and Christian is the CEO of a security company, and he is quite literally obsessed with Stella, and it is not noticeable at all whatsoever to quite literally anybody unless you are reading Christian's point of view, but he very much is obsessed. Anyways, relationship, third act breakup, you get it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars because I love it. This was definitely a slow burn too though, and I feel like if you love slow burns, this is kind of for you, I'm not gonna lie. I also kind of didn't like the third act breakup for this book as well, just because again I feel not like it didn't matter, it definitely mattered to the situation and to who Stella was as a character and things that had happened to her. I just don't think it was as big as a deal as it was made out to be, but I understand why it would be a big deal to somebody like Stella, if that makes sense. Like, I understand the point of view, it's just I don't agree with it, if that makes literally any sense. So now, putting these books in order, last place we have Twisted Hate, the third place we have Twisted Game, in second place we have Twisted Love, and then in first place we of course have Twisted Love. The last series that I want to talk about is the King of Sin series. The King of Sin series is ANA HUANG's most recent series. I will say that I think personally this is my favorite series written by her. So starting off with the first book, we have King of Wrath. King of Wrath is about Dante Russo, who is a billionaire, gajillionaire, and his realm is like art and like prized possessions. And then we have Vivian, who her family is very much in like the jewelry industry. She comes from new money, while Dante comes from old money, and this is definitely an arranged marriage trope. And I will say, I am personally not a big person on arranged marriages, so I was very hesitant to start ANA HUANG's series because it starts with an arranged marriage trope. But I will say that this was pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. Was it my favorite? Absolutely not. But I will say that Vivian, love her. Dante, not a huge fan, actually, at all, which is crazy because I'm usually more into the male characters than the female characters. You know, because men, I don't know, just something about him just screamed annoying. Anywho, so this is an arranged marriage trope. Again, not a huge fan, but I did end up reading it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars because I like Vivian. I like the fact that she stands up for herself. I like her personality. I definitely think that she handled the situation the best that she could, to be honest with you. And if you've read the book, you definitely understand what I mean. Moving on, because I really don't have much to say about King of Wrath, considering I read it so long ago. We have King of Pride. Now, when I originally read King of Pride, I ended up giving it 5 stars. And King of Pride, sorry to like backtrack, go forward, backtrack, and go forward. I'm just a mess. King of Pride is about Isabel, or Isabella, but like, that's literally my name. Anyways, and she has purple hair. And if you don't know, I used to have purple hair. So that's fun. I felt so connected to this character. I was like, oh my god, that's literally me. She is technically a bartender, but she really, really wants to be a exotic writer. There's a specific genre that she's in, and I know it's exotic something. But yeah, if you've read it, you know what I mean. And then there is Kai, and he's just like a member of the club, and I don't know what industry he's in, to be honest with you. But he's there. He's attractive. There's a lot of tension between them because they're attracted to each other, but there's a policy that the bartenders who work at the Valhalla Club cannot get into relationships with members of the club. So that becomes a really big thing. It's kind of like a forbidden love trope, and there's a lot of secrets that go around, and I love it. I love it. Okay, I love it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and the reason for that is just because I loved Isabella, I loved Kai, I loved their relationship, I loved the sneakiness, I loved the spicy scenes, I loved these characters, and that kind of sucks for me to say because you'll see what I see at the end of this video. So moving on to King of Greed. King of Greed is the 3rd book in the King of Sin series. This is about Alessandra and Dominic, and Alessandra and Dominic are actually already married. this actually ends up becoming a thing where they get divorced and Dominic has to basically fight to get her back. This, to me, was one of the poorly written books by ANA HUANG. I feel like it just lacked in a lot of aspects. To be honest, I don't want to, you know, like be like super hypocritical, because again, I've never written a book, but this is a book that I was very excited to get the point of view of having to fight for your marriage. But this entire book is again a very, very big miscommunication trope, and what really bothers me is the way that Alessandra handled the situation. There were no conversations, there was no communication. It was just, let's get divorced. And to me, I just feel like I would feel the same way that Dominic did, and I was definitely on Dominic's side this entire book. And it was also for me the fact that Alessandra really doesn't acknowledge that she didn't communicate for like 90% of the book. And again, that really, really bothers me, because that is the whole issue, is that there was no communication at all. So I ended up giving this book a 2 stars. Again, this for me was very much like a situation of twisted hate, or a situation of If We've Ever Met Again, where it lacked in just story, it lacked in something that I just cannot let go, or I genuinely just didn't like the character. And I feel like this is really sad to say, but I really didn't like Alessandra. I really didn't. Sorry. And then moving on to the last book that ANA HUANG has published, which is her newest release that I think came out about a month or 2 ago, and that is King of Sloth. King of Sloth is a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, and I cannot tell you and I cannot rave enough about how much I love this book, because this book quite literally sums up my relationship in real life. We are most definitely a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, and I related to her so much. I related to the fear of her wanting to be in a relationship or wanting to be loved and just not having the faith in somebody. And that is definitely something that I feel like a lot of people go through, and it's definitely not talked about or definitely not recognized. And I definitely think it's not talked about, and I definitely think that for me it was a very, very big realization of, oh my god, other people actually do have to go through this. It's not just me. I'm not the only one who thinks like this, because at a certain point in time you definitely start to think the way that Sloane was feeling, which was alone, and like you have to do everything yourself because you can't rely on anyone else to be there for you. And skipping into the synopsis of who this is about, because I completely forgot, Sloane owns her own PR firm. She's badass. We love her. She is quite literally the best of everything and anything. And then we have Xavier, who is technically one of her clients. Mans goes through a lot, bro. Like a lot. But Sloane is his PR agent, I want to say. And the reason for that is because Xavier does really crazy stuff, and his family was definitely from old money, so it was like, hey, you can't really ruin the reputation of us, please. And yeah, Xavier just didn't care at all whatsoever. That's how they meet. That's kind of how they intertwine eventually. Anyways, I love this book. I ended up giving this book a 4.5. And lastly, if I had to put this in an order, my first one would always and forever, I'm pretty sure, is going to be King of Sloth. Second would be King of Pride. Third is going to be King of Wrath. And lastly is going to be King of Greed. Now, the last part of this video that I wanted to talk about were what books by ANA HUANG do I actually recommend, and which ones do I definitely think you should not read, or if there's any series that I just don't think are worth it, and which series I definitely do think are worth it. And this is crazy because I honestly think that this is such a toss-up, because I think each of these series are good within itself. It honestly just depends on which ones you like, which is again why I went over each rating of mine and how I personally felt about it and which order I would put them in, because I have my own opinion, and you'll have your own opinion, and a lot of people will have their opinions, and you know, this was just a little fun video for me to do a deep dive into all my opinions of ANA HUANG and how much I love her. Getting into the books that I 100% recommend on my hands and knees, you need to read it, are Twisted Love, King of Sloth, and If Love Had a Price. Those are the 3 books that I would recommend that everyone read. I definitely don't think you have to read the entire series. I definitely think you'll miss like a thing or two here, but I don't think it's quite relevant. You can read them as standalones. It's not that big of a deal, especially if you're gonna read Twisted Love. Now, books that I would 100% not recommend by Anna Huang, which I'm so sad to say this, is Twisted Hate, King of Greed, and If We Ever Met Again. And I think that's just because those really lacked something for me. Now, if there's any series that I wouldn't recommend, there's no series by Anna Huang that I don't recommend. I definitely think they all have their own situations. They all have their bad books, they all have their good books. But I think the one series that I definitely recommend that everyone reads by Anna Huang is her newest series, and that is the King of Sin series. I do think it's her best series. I do think it's the most interesting, and I'm definitely here for it. And I definitely is a 7-book series, and we're only 4 books into it, but considering it's a 7-book series, I feel like there's a lot of room for good and bad. So I'm really excited to see kind of where this goes, because for me right now, the series is very 50-50. It's more good than bad. So again, the series I recommend by Anna Huang is definitely the King of Sin series. It's definitely the one series I would say read, because I love Anna Huang and I definitely think you should read her. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys enjoyed my little chaotic, not put together deep dive of Anna Huang. Bye!